Today we're going to be talking about temperatures and how the X570 boards just really like to jack those up. This is Dustin here with RabidBits. Today we're going to be going over a little bit of tweaking in the X570 platform. Recently I upgraded from a B450 motherboard and a 2700X up to a Asus X570 Tough Gaming Plus Wi-Fi. Would have got it without Wi-Fi because I'm hardwired, but that's all that I could get. And a 3900X. Right out of the box, I was suffering from some very major temperature increases. Thought it was the nature of the beast. Figured, screw it, I'm gonna throw, a good cooler and some high-end fans at it. Which I did to the tune of two Noctua 140s up front and Noctua 120 in the back, and a Be Quiet Dark Rock TF CPU cooler. That particular CPU cooler is rated for 220 watts TDP, and it did rein in my temperatures quite a bit. But I still wasn't quite happy with it. So I started to do some digging, and it's an issue across the X570 platform that they just jack the voltage way up. I mean, I'm sitting here in the BIOS screen at 1.472 volts. That is egregiously high, and that's well known. But I went ahead and turned that down to a more normal voltage, and I wanted to show you guys the performance impact of running stock out the box voltage versus running, in my case, a 1.3 volt. I went ahead and ran several stress tests on the CPU, multi-core, single core, whole 9 yards, ranged from Cinebench R15 and R20, two versions of Blender, and for the gamers out there, I did TimeSpy. Going over the findings, I actually was kind of shocked with some of the things that you'll see. Before I dive into that though, let's go ahead and take a look at my findings. Here we go. So I don't know if you caught what I caught, but some of the things are obvious. Like, your scores are going to be better with your multi-threaded, multi-core programs such as R15, R20, and blenders. But some of those scores are more within margin of error than I care to admit. The temperatures definitely are a big difference. What really caught me off guard though was the single core temperatures. I mean, we're looking at close to a 10-degree delta on some of those. That's not good. I mean, the averages were a little bit less, but they were still plus or minus 5 degrees. Like, that's not normal. That's not good. And if you look at the TimeSpy reports, I mean, I mainly focused on the CPU in here, but again, for you gamers out there, I included TimeSpy because it does have built-in graphics tests. You'll see the temperature differential there doesn't reflect your frame output. It doesn't reflect the difference in CPU scores. Like I said, some of these scores are within that margin of error. I mean, you're looking at your single core performance jumping up, X amount of degrees and gaining a point. That's not worth it. Now, Cinebench R20, we gained about 400 points by going with the stock voltage. With that being said, I'm going to continue running at 1.3 volts because that 400 point difference when you're talking about, 66 or 6500 to 6900, that's a very minuscule difference. Something that I'm not going to notice, and I'm not willing to risk throwing that kind of heat at my CPU. There's times where this particular CPU will sit and render until the wee hours of the morning. I don't know what it does temperature-wise throughout the night. I don't want to take that risk. Just like with cars, temperature and heat are the biggest evil you can throw at them. The hotter it is, the more clock speed you throw at it, the shorter the life's going to be. I don't want to build something and then a year later it goes out, I have to rebuild it. But a little caveat to this whole conversation, with the B550s and the 3000 series Ryzen XTs right on the cusp of coming out, I almost wonder, looking at the rumored boost clocks, if they're actually going to be taking advantage of these extremely high stock speeds. It's something that we'll have to find out as the reviewers actually get a hold of these boards, something that I'm rather curious about, because there has to be some sort of reason why these boards come out of the box 1.45. Again, that is egregiously high. It is way out of the normal. In the case of the rumors following the 3900 XT, the step above what I have, being able to turbo boost up to 4.8, the highest I see is 4.4, and that's 1.45 or 1.3 volts. So I wonder if it's actually going to be able to take advantage of the out-of-the-box voltage at this point. Again, something that we'll have to wait and find out. But I'm going to run you through dropping these voltages down just in case you're curious, and the voltages that I personally run. My BIOS might look a little bit different than your BIOS. I'm running Asus. You could be running whatever board, has ROG MSI. But regardless, the values are going to be approximately the same across the whole X570 platform. Let's go ahead and dive into BIOS and get these numbers changed so you can follow along. Alright, so we're here in BIOS, getting ready to adjust some numbers. We're going to have to enter advanced modes to be able to do this. Go over to the tweaker, because all our computers are just apparently tweakers. Yes, they have a hostess problem. So let's go ahead and get down here to your VDDC-R. Now you can see it's sitting at 1.464. Let's set that to manual. Take that off of auto. 1.3 across the board. Your SoC voltage, which, if I remember right, is going to be your Infinity Fabric voltage, which is what the Ryzen series runs off of and communicates up here with your RAM. So we're going to knock that back down. It's sitting at 1.1 right now. Let's go ahead and actually bump that up to 1.2. 1.35 DRAM voltage, that's perfect. Keep you guys on auto. The 1 volt is actually sitting at 1 volt. The 1.2 volt is actually sitting at 1.2 volts. I have seen some of these voltages actually come out of the box a little tweaked. 2.5 volts, perfect. So again, VDDCR, set that to 1.3. Your SoC, 1.2. It's okay to run that up a little bit. It's just overclocking your Infinity Fabric slightly. Now I run my RAM I run that at 2666 because I was not able to get RAM that was on my QVL from my local store. So we'll go ahead and save the changes and reset 1.3, 1.2. Done. And we'll get her to boot up real quick. Should have absolutely zero issues, and my temperatures will be reined back in. Done. Let's go ahead and go back to the talking head format and go back over our findings. Now, these numbers aren't going to be for everybody. There's going to be the people out there that do want the extra several hundred points on Cinebench. They're going to want the extra points across the board, the extra overclocking headroom. Again, that's not my cup of tea. I have one system to game, record, render, edit, you name it on. I can't justify shortening its life just to gain some points. And I'm not even gaining any FPS. I'm within margin of error on rendering times. So I'm going to continue running it at 1.3 volts. With that being said, this is Dustin with RabidBits. Catch you guys in the next one. See ya.